Most leadership advice is built around the assumption that everything is going to go according to plan. You're taught how to motivate people and set goals and, of course, communicate the expectations. And that always sounds very easy. Your team is engaged, but I can tell you that that's not where leadership actually happens. That's when leadership is theorized. But that's not where it's forged. Leadership is forged when the deadline is missed, or when the performance slips, or when you have to confront behavior that you would rather ignore. Or how about when a team member does something that breaks trust and it really becomes uncomfortable and awkward? Or when you have to say something that you would rather avoid and you're just hoping that it goes away on its own. Maybe they'll get a clue. But listen, quick tip, they don't get a clue. Those are the moments that make you question whether you were ever meant to lead in the first place. And those are some of the things that we're going to get into today. So stick with me. Welcome to Crossroads and Catalysts. I'm your host, Shanita B. This is where we explore how a thoughtful, wise, and strategic perspective at life's crossroads can become a catalyst for the meaningful change in your leadership and the direction of your life. So over the last several weeks, I've discussed the internal work of leadership, the things that discuss who you are and what drives you. But now we're going to turn our attention toward the practice of it. And we're going to get into the messy realities of leadership. And there are a lot of them. Because when the motivational talks that you heard fail to inspire, or the books that you read just don't give you what you need in those moments, we have to really understand how to practice leadership when everything is not ideal. Okay? Because it's easy to be a leader when everything is going right. But leadership isn't proven when everything is working. It's proven when something isn't working. So by the end of this episode, you will definitely understand how to start the difficult conversation. And this is not going to be a play by play, because I don't do play by plays. If that's something that you want, then you have to contact me directly, excuse me, and schedule some time so that we can talk through it. But in the meantime, I do have a resource available for you. It's called the What's Next Guide. Okay. This is going to give you some prompts so that you can ask yourself these questions and detail out your crossroads, which is going to tell you where you are. It's going to help you to identify what the issue is. You're going to get some clarity on it and understand what is true versus what is not true. And then you're going to have some prompts that help you think through your choices so that you can make a decision about what you want to do next, and do that intentionally and with purpose. And then finally, you're going to have a catalyst. You're going to turn whatever that situation is into a catapult that is going to get you to the next step. All it takes is one small step. So take a look at the link in the show notes and go ahead and sign up for that. Okay. And we'll get that sent over to you. So today's episode is really about understanding how to have the difficult conversations. Because again, when you're in a situation with an employee or even a colleague and you recognize that something has to be addressed, that's when you really have to think through, am I really cut out for this? And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because I've been to many seminars. I've listened to many leadership experts. And for the record, I don't consider myself a leadership expert. I consider myself with someone with many years of experience that has played out both for me and against me. Okay. Because these things are not perfect, but they will help to refine you and make you better. And it starts with being able to have the difficult conversations, even when you don't feel like you're the most equipped to do that, or you feel afraid or hesitant for whatever reason. I've had many uncomfortable conversations, and a lot of them turned out to be more uncomfortable in my mind than in reality. And that's probably where you are right now. And what I can tell you is that it will be okay. And I don't want you to continue to second guess yourself or your leadership ability and capability because of this one conversation. But what I can tell you is you will undermine your leadership and your reputation if you continue to refuse and avoid the conversations that need to take place. And let me give you an example, because again, I've listened to many leadership experts, and I'm not saying that I haven't gained anything. I am a lifelong learner, and I love to learn from other people's experience. But again, a lot of those conversations, a lot of those discussions, rather, were under the ideal circumstances. But in this one particular instance, I participated in a class, and part of the leadership formation training was discussing having those difficult conversations. And difficult is probably on the spectrum, right? What's difficult for one person may not be difficult for another. But the result is still that it has been assessed that this is not something that is going to be easy to do. And for those who have a heart for people, you may find it even more difficult and challenging to have to address some things. But let me tell you, you got to do it. You cannot avoid it, nor should you avoid it. All right. So, in this leadership formation class, we had to do some role play. And the role play, at least this is how we thought that it was supposed to be played out. Turns out that we got it wrong, but it was still a fun exercise. And so we had to mention, okay, let's think of an employee that we had to have a discussion with in relation to confusion and maybe the process or the task that was assigned to them. They didn't do it correctly. And so they were complaining. Okay, well, that's fine. I have had many conversations with staff over the years where they were confused, or at least that's what they had expressed, that they were confused, or that was the assessment that was made in those situations. Anyhow, I'm being long winded. And we had to do some role play, like I said, and we had to help each other understand how we would address these situations and kind of pick it apart. But you know what's funny is they gave us these scenarios, and some of them were very real. And you think about how fickle human beings can be, and how we make excuses and justify our behavior, especially when it is obvious that this is not going to go in your favor. We will do it anyway. I had a lady on my team. She would come in every morning, and this is when she first started working. So you had to be either bold or stupid to do this. She would come in every morning and she would clock in, and then she would go downstairs to the cafe and order a coffee. And I didn't realize that this is what she was doing because I don't hover over my teams. That's just not my thing. And I started realizing that she was not coming to that she was not at her desk. And I think one of my team members might have mentioned it, and they weren't doing it in a way to kind of to try to tell on her, but they just said that they had noticed the same thing. And so I started paying attention. And so finally I had to go downstairs. I had to leave my office and go downstairs and catch this woman sitting at the cafe. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" "I'm just having coffee." "Okay, well when you come to work and you clock in, you're supposed to be working. The standard is that you work when you clock in. You have 2 breaks throughout the day plus a lunch break. And you can take these breaks at these established times. And if you need to change them, we can have a discussion about that." "Oh, well, I didn't think that it was that big of a deal. I can't have coffee." "Yeah, you can have coffee, but you can have coffee at your desk or during your break time." But you know what was interesting is that she thought that that behavior was perfectly acceptable. So the crossroads was recognizing that there was a conversation that had to take place. This was not something, because now I'm talking about also being clear about the issue. Is the issue one that warrants a conversation, or is the issue one that warrants me checking myself and making sure that I'm just not in a bad mood? And you might have to do the same, because some of us, maybe our husbands or spouses made us upset. The kids were crying and had us all frazzled as we were running out the door, and now we're in a bad mood and we spilled coffee all over ourselves, all kinds of situations, right? Maybe you were just not feeling too well, and what they did or said got on your nerves, and it's hell to pay. My point is, you have to delineate between, is this a situation that warrants a conversation, Or do I need to look at myself in the mirror and say, oh, you tripping and you need to cut it out? And this was one of those situations where I knew it's time to pass go and go to the next step. And so that's what I did. So this is why it's important to be able to identify your crossroads and define it and then get clear about what's going on. Are the assumptions true? Are they not true? Get to the root cause of the thing if you can. And then you can proceed with trying to understand, hey, what now that I know what the situation is, now that I know what the facts are, what should I do next? Or what can I do next? Or what outcome do I want? What outcome do I want from this situation? And how do I impact this so as to get the return that I'm looking for? And okay, let's remember we are dealing with human beings. So, regardless of how well you might approach this, you still might not get the outcome that you want. But the point is not necessarily to try to make them do something. The point is to sharpen your skills and show yourself to be a leader by addressing those things that are concerning, because this could lead to team morale issues. It could look like you're showing favoritism if you do not address them. It could lead to resentment and a whole host of other things that you really don't want to have to deal with. And yes, they might float across the surface of those things when you're in these leadership discussions and reading these books. But once you have to get into the thick of it and deal with it, it's not going to be as easy as it is listed on the black and white pages. Okay, so this is why you want to deal with it head on. Okay. So this is what I want you to do. You're going to have to challenge yourself. If there's a difficult conversation that you have been avoiding, and I'm sure you can probably think of several instances where something has happened, maybe it has happened repeatedly, and you chose to ignore it because you just hoped that it would go away, or you were just too tired, or you were just too busy. Let me explain something to you. If you are too tired to be a leader, you should not be a leader. If you are too busy to be a leader, you should not be a leader. And I'm not saying that this is just a one-time circumstance where you just can't deal with it. We all go through that. But if you are making it a pattern of your behavior to avoid things that need to be addressed, then you are part of the problem. So hear me clearly. I want you to take one step this week. Okay. And the first step is not going to be to set the calendar up for the meeting. The first step is for you to assess, what is this issue that is causing this to be a difficult conversation? And have I assessed it appropriately? Just ask yourself those questions. And if you have determined that this does not fall into the category of emotion, okay. And even if it does fall into the category of emotion, maybe somebody said something that made you feel a certain kind of way. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be addressed. But what I'm saying is, I want you to understand the difference between somebody saying something to irritate you and just get on your nerves, or somebody doing or saying something that has impact for you and the rest of the team. Okay. Get into that and understand that. All right. So that's where we're going to end the conversation today. I'm so glad that we went through this information. And so in the future, we're going to be talking about delegation as one of the difficulties and accountability as one of the difficulties. Okay. So be sure that you follow the show so that you do not miss out on the notifications. Okay. So until next time, be thoughtful, be wise, be strategic. And remember, crossroads reveal who you are. Catalysts shape who you become. Every decision matters, so make it count. I'll talk to you next week.